Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Decisions Lunch and Learn. It's your host, Gregory Goldston, with the Decisions Training Team on this Tuesday, the 8th. I'm going to go over the things on the right, as we typically do. Check out our Decisions Support YouTube channel. This has a lot of helpful content for the different kinds of applications that you're trying to build inside of the product. We have content that covers modules, how to use particular steps, how to use particular categories of steps, and quite a variety outside of those things I even listed there. So if you need some assistance with your project and want to learn how to do something, highly recommend checking that out. Also, look at the Decision Solutions Marketplace. This is where we have a lot of pre-built projects that you can import into your environment, take a look at how they work, reverse engineer them, implement parts into your own designs, and it shows you some of the capabilities that Decisions has. So highly recommend taking a look at that if you are trying to perform a particular function or build out a particular kind of application. You might already find something there that's very similar. And then, of course, our Decisions product roadmap review is back. You can sign up for that at decisions.com/events. This is where you can get insights onto some of the things coming down the pipeline for the Decisions product. Okay. Well, with that being said, I'm going to flip over to my Decisions screen now. Give me just a moment while I do that, all right? And then y'all can start posting questions in the Q&A now, by the way. So let's go here, and voila, there we go. Okay, I'm going to bring up our attendees list and the Q&A. All right, so I guess while we're waiting for some questions, I can go over some of the new stuff that's come out in Decisions version 9.12. We have a lot of cool features here, one of which being a new type of calculated column called the custom actions field. So let me show you exactly how this works. Let me go to flow. Actually, you know what? I've already got one built. So this right here is going to fetch a list of recipes, is going to pass them into the advanced data grid that is inside of this form. And this advanced data grid has the new calculated column on it. So I'll show you exactly what this looks like. So this is my calculated column. It allows me to display multiple icons inside of one field, each of which can trigger an action. And this action has access to the original data that is passed inside of the calculated column. Another thing that I should mention is that these flows that you can create that perform these actions also have access to form data. So just like an active form flow, this can access different parts of your form designer and make changes or fetch data from that part of the form designer in order to complete this action. So for example, with this one right here, I have a favorites action, and I can mark this as a favorite. And then over here, I have a show ingredients action, which is going to let me to display another form inside of my form itself, similar to a sub dialog feature, which is going to show me all of the list items that is normally not shown when you are trying to display a report, right? Because if you try and display a list of items, it won't show up. However, now I can just have that at the click of a button. So this was a new feature added in Decisions version 9.12. I should mention that currently this feature is only available for advanced data grids. This is not on the default report designer right now, but at least wanted to show you how this would function. And it is something new that you can utilize. Okay, so that's one of the big new features. We also added new icons for the converter flows. So if you are using a converter flow, you're now going to see this icon appear in the top right, which will actually show you whether or not a converter flow is being used either on the input or the output. If you put on either one, you'll see the symbol here. Another symbol that's been added is for if, where did it go? Is if simulation data is being used. So if I go in here and I check any one of these to use one of these simulation data types, you're going to see this right here. Simulation is active. And this warning is simply because I don't have any inputs into here, right? So I can set this to a constant, and then whatever I put in, even if it's null, that will go away. You'll also get a warning if you try to use in production data that lets you know, hey, hold up, you're trying to use stuff that's going to be simulating production behavior. So I at least wanted to show you that as well. There's another one as well that is used for personal identification information. So PII data, I might have gotten the actual words for the acronym wrong, but for PII data, you now have the ability to see a marking for that. Whenever I'm using PII data inside of a merge text editor and I hover over this, you're going to see this yellow icon, right? So I've marked both of these as PII data, routing number and account number. And you can see this little validation right here, right? If I hover over this as well, you'll see this is marked as PII or encrypted data and may contain sensitive information. So if someone is trying to use inside of a merge text editor, now you have a better ability to control what data is being passed in and passed out and not making any mistakes as far as sharing that data if you didn't wish to. Okay, still don't have any questions I see. So not sure if I have anything else immediately related to the release notes right now, but I can jump back into how that calculated column is set up if you're curious. So specify the input data, right? This is for any advanced data grid. You have to specify the name of the data that's coming in and you pass it in. Here's where I modify the source. And then over here, actions, this is where I create those user actions. Now, when I create an action for this, I have to specify an icon. However, I can specify a conditional icon. So I can use one of my other types of data input from my data source and then create a condition that will determine which icon gets displayed based upon whatever that field equals. So if I were to exit out of this real quick, I'm going to save this. And then I don't have it configured correctly to show you an update in live time, I believe. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So I'm going to hit done here. But if I were to run this again, you'll see that because this is now favorite marked true, this is the icon I get displayed instead. I should mention, these can update in real time. I clicked on this and it didn't, but these can update in real time. I just don't have this one configured correctly to do that at the moment. Okay, let's go back to our Monday luncheon and learning. No questions still. At least I'm not seeing any in the QA. Let's see, what else can we talk about? Oh, you know what? I've got a great thing we can talk about, actually. Oh, Vitali, I see you'd like to talk. What you got?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can now, yes.
In lower version of 9, I've seen a weird bug. I'm not sure if this is in your version, but if you can create like a flow with the rule, let's say some number greater than constant 0.
Okay, create a flow and then create a rule.
Yeah, greater than, well, doesn't have to
Am I-
be a custom rule, just greater than number.
Just any rule. Okay, gotcha. Greater than number. Okay. I'm gonna drag this on here as well. Okay.
And so value 1 could be whatever, but value 2, can you make it um, constant, but do not touch anything?
Okay.
Yeah, just like that.
Okay.
And try to run it.
Try to run it.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm going to connect these to our end step. Debug it.
Okay, so in earlier version, oh, that's a new thing.
Yeah, this is
Sorry.
a new debugger out. By the way, this is how the debugger looks now. You don't get input, output, input slash output. You just get it all in one screen now, so you can make those comparisons.
Yeah, so what I've seen when you configure value to for like constant and you do not touch, it will run as null. It
It
will
will run
show
it.
you a zero, but it will run as null and it will fail. But if you try to delete that zero and input specifically zero, it runs fine.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting. I've got two questions for you then. One, what version of 9 is this on?
Let me check. 9.9.
9.9. Okay. Second question I got for you right here. This is a system-wide rule. So we also want to confirm that it hasn't been edited by anything, right? So go over here, browse dependency.
Yeah,
Oh, it's not.
yeah, no, that no, it was not edited.
Not
So
edited.
the bug is when you say constant, it shows zero, but if you do not specify that it's actually zero, it runs as null.
Okay. Interesting. So that's on version 9.9. I I was not informed of that bug. Throw error if null is not expected. Yeah, hold on.
So it's not producing an error, it just always outputs false because,
It outputs false. It doesn't produce an error.
yes.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing this issue. This is version 9.13, by the way. So I'm not seeing this issue currently
And
in
also
this
it's weird
notebook.
if even if this is the case, can you specifically say that value two is null?
Sure.
And oh, yeah.
Well, I have to uncheck this, right? Throw error if
Yeah,
null is not expected.
okay.
And now it goes down the true path.
So that was not expected because in my version it says 55 is less than no.
Hmm. Interesting. That that is quite strange. Is it greater than or equal to? Do you know?
Uh, greater than.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're covering our bases here. Let me try greater than double, see if this exists over here. Just see if it is something kind of strange. We'll do the exact same ones, right? 55. And this one, we're just going to put a constant. I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to drag this to the end and we're going to debug it. That one goes down the true path as well.
Uh,
Yeah,
and you think, can you go back?
sure.
Uh, in the value types instead of constants. So now you have not a number.
Yeah,
It's a new feature, right?
I believe so. I have not seen that. And it's only functioning for the double. It's not functioning for the standard one.
Oh.
Yeah. That's not part of yours. Yeah, this one's going down false for not a number. That's kind of more the behavior you're getting, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, it might be it could be a bug related to that version. It doesn't seem like that exists in this version of decisions. I can also check in version 9.12 and see if it exists there as well. So, yeah, I'll let you know if that
And
got patched.
this is 9.12 or 9.11?
This is 9.13. This is
Oh,
yeah, this is not released yet fully, but yeah, I'll check in 9.12, the latest released version of 9.12.
okay. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm actually going to go over a concept here if we don't have any more questions. And then if we don't have any more people join or any more questions by the time I've done finished, like that I finished this concept, I cannot speak today, that I've completed this concept, then we're just going to call it a day. All right. So I'm going to be talking about the post to flow handler, right? Post to flow handler is a very particular kind of flow behavior, and its purpose is to handle dynamic API information sent from an outside source that calls this flow. All right. So, this flow is going to have a few things that are different from it off the bat. One, notice that I don't have the option on the top to configure this as an API integration or not. By default, this flow is designed to be called by an API. So I can click view and get all of the call information. All right. You'll notice that there's also some additional information that I don't have in the normal flow. Typically, you just have flow data, and if you have any project or system constants, then you'd see those under here as well. However, you have extension data and call data. Call data is really the important one here because it is of the type HTTP post and it allows for the fetching of information from an external API call in a way that is more dynamic than a normal flow can offer. When you try to integrate with a normal flow in decisions, a standard flow behavior, there is always an input option up here. And whatever you specify that input to be is going to be the type of data that this particular flow is going to accept via a post call. In this flow, whatever information you pass into this flow is captured in the call data. And however you format that information will get passed along into the payload data as one long string. So you can pass in any kind of data from that payload data right here, and then you'll be able to utilize that inside of your flow to perform whatever action you're looking to perform. So, again, this gives you stuff that the normal kind of flow wouldn't give you. You get a list of request headers from whatever the post call is. You get the raw URL. You get the user host address. You get the type of port post call, whether it's a post call or not right here, or if it was a get call. Form data is very cool because it allows you to pass in file data into decisions. This is the default way to pass in file data information into a decisions flow to be utilized. So if you have something that you're testing this from, like Postman, right? If you choose to pass in the content type of file data as form data, you can have that passed in under form data, file data automatically, and then use that file inside of your decisions flow. Now, there is something to keep in mind with this is that there is a hard limit on the size of the file that you can pass in from this particular function. This goes for any decisions call, by the way. This is not unique to the post to flow handler. That max limit is 14.65 megabytes, and you can utilize any sort of file that is less than that from a singular call inside of your environment. Otherwise, you would wish to chunk up the file. Now, once I actually fetch information from file data, I'm able to use it wherever I want, right? Just like I would for if a user put in file data from an upload file on a form control. Another thing you need to know about this is the properties. I have to make sure that if I want to pass in file data, I have this button checked, read form data. Okay. So that has to be checked. And then I can even perform some other actions that normally aren't available in the standard flow behavior. In the standard flow behavior, you get the advanced actions and then you get the settings, right? In this particular type of flow, you have some other options, such as allowed methods. I can say I can allow get methods, post methods, or if I want to return the results as a JSON format, I can specify if I want the authentication to be via the HTTP header that is passed in rather than authenticated by whatever I select down here. And now this is something very interesting. In other flows, you have to authenticate via either a login information, via guest information, via a named session, or some sort of JWT token, right? Those are going to be the four ways that you authenticate another type of call to decisions. In this particular flow, I can specify what the user context is of this flow when it's executed by either specifying the account that this flow will run as or by the named session that this flow will run as. So that is to say your authentication is not tied now to the user context. You can specify this user context on your own. And then, of course, I can restrict by IP address, and that allows me to tell this particular flow which IP addresses it will allow to execute this call to this flow.
Gregory, how do you authenticate via HTTP header?
Let's say, for example, that I have a header information I've chosen to pass in via my call, such as like a bearer token, right? I can choose to pass in that bearer token via the header as the authentication for this flow to execute instead of using the typical authentication methods right here. Given just a moment, this is going to load. I'll show you kind of what this looks like. Okay. So here's a URL that gets called. Notice that it's not in the folder slug format of the other one because this is not designed to be called in that particular way. You're calling the URL and you pass in information of this type, and then you pass in whatever kind of information you want in this. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where are my headers? Request headers. Yeah. So I would specify what kind of header and then what kind of value is going to be passed into this. Now, as far as the specifics on what kind of headers can be used to authenticate this flow, that is something that I will have to look into and get back to you on that information on. That is not something I know off the top of my head as far as which kind of headers allow for which kind of authentication. But I can check that. Pardon me for a moment while I exit.
So that bearer token that you have mentioned to authenticate is decisions issuer
I
or
am not I am not certain. That is what I will need to look up to confirm. I am actually not certain as far as whether it is some like when you create a bearer token in decisions or an OAuth token. Let's say you make an OAuth token, right? The OAuth token has its own actual code for what that long string of authentication is, right? You have a long string that's going to be your OAuth token. And then Decisions creates an entity ID because the OAuth token is an entity in Decisions. So there's the actual token text itself, and there's the ID. I don't know off the top of my head if it takes that token text if you're authenticating via this method, or if it would take that ID. If that were to be the method that were used to authenticate this. Usually in Decisions, it's the ID. um, when you are determining what kind of REST services are going to utilize your authentication token, it selects it by ID. Same thing when you are going to use OAuth to authenticate your SMTP server in the settings XML, that takes the OAuth ID. It does not take the full OAuth text length. So I would say just from the context of how I've seen other decisions functions operate, ID seems likely, but I'm not certain about that. Oh wow, this is a new feature. Y'all see this? I just figured this out right now. Yeah, you can connect 8 sides on other steps, but not on the end step. This is new. Look at that. Yeah, that's pretty neat. Okay, well, I've gone over my post to flow brief introduction here. I don't see anyone else that's joined, and I don't see any further questions. So I think we are just going to call it a day then. So appreciate you all for coming. Thank you very much for watching this Lunch and Learn. It's going to be Jeremy back at it tomorrow, and I'll take on Thursday. So look forward to seeing you all again sometime soon. Thank you.